Good time last evening. All right. Now I know which people are tired. Okay. So look, welcome to the presentation about how to deliver dozens of applications without going nuts. First of all, who am I? What am I doing here? My name is Michał Rykert. I work in IT for 12 years. With main focus on digitalization, business processes, application implementation, and everything around. And I actually cooperate with ETA2U 2020, so it's my 4th year of fruitful cooperation with the guys here. So look, before we start, this session is not going to be about WEBCON. This is not going to be a product session. This is not going to be an advertisement. The points I'm going to make will be applicable to multiple scenarios, multiple situations, whether you use WEBCON or not, okay? So look, let's start with certain analysis of where we are in terms of IT work, in terms of the demand of applications. And the thing is that on average, a company uses 291 applications. And I think that's crazy. When I found out, it's so much and so many. So look, if you look at the statistics based on the company size, on average, companies are introducing new applications, 6 new applications within a month, right? So this is the kind of demand that we're having at the moment, especially after pandemic, especially with the remote work, especially given the fact that people no longer want to be responsible for manual, repetitive tasks. They want to be efficient, they want to have automation in place, and so on and so forth. And if you're curious which departments are using the largest number of applications, the first one is security, but I think that that's justifiable. But then we have engineering, IT, sales, and more. And actually, if you see the numbers per department, again, it's like 60 applications per department. It's crazy if you think about it. So the point is, the demand for applications is higher than ever, and it's a multi-phase challenge, right? For security, to make everything okay from the governance perspective and so on, from the organizational perspective, and also from the perspective of delivery of applications, because somehow you need to introduce those applications to the organization. If you don't, then employees will do that themselves, right? And not many companies want to have shadow IT, right? So it's better to be in control and be supporting the need of applications rather than letting everything go. So how do we meet the demand? There are 3 most popular ways of doing that. First one is the classic custom code approach, right? We have the demand, let's take programmers, or let's outsource it outside, and let's write something. And the reason why I say it's old school, because it's less and less popular these days, because with the demand of 300 applications per company, it's impossible to create from scratch every single one of them. But that wouldn't be even the worst. The worst is maintaining them and developing them further, right? Keeping them relevant. And guess what? We are lacking 600,000 developers just in the European Union alone, right? So hiring developers, paying them, retaining them, that's a hefty cost to have, and simply that's a huge challenge these days. The second option we have is to use ready-to-use applications, right? So we have the problem, we have the demand, we Google it, we see what's available, we take it from the market, and technically that's fine, right? We feel the need, we fill the gap. And it's fine if you do that once, twice, maybe 3 times. But if you think about, again, 291, the scale becomes the problem. Because you need to integrate, you have different interfaces, you need to train people, you need to pay so many different vendors, and most of them will prefer subscription-based fees. So again, to meet the demand in the long term, that not necessarily is a way to go, or not always. And the third option, and this is what we'll focus today, is no-code, low-code, right? So we take a platform, which, you know, if my family asks me over Sunday's dinner what you do, I tell them, look, no-code, low-code is a little bit like Lego for building applications, right? So we build that ourselves, or with the help of a partner like WEBCON. And then we have just one platform for many applications. And that sounds great. And actually, Gartner, the most esteemed IT analyst company, said that by 2025, 70% of new applications will be delivered with low-code. And if we analyze the certain reasons to buy low-code versus custom-coded and versus commercial off-the-shelf solutions, it boils down to 4 factors. First of all, it's about the cost. Second of all, it's about the speed of delivery. Third of all, it's about the flexibility and possibility to change. And this is the analysis of CIO's responses to the question, how do they view low-code and no-code versus, let's say, more traditional ways of meeting the demand for applications. And it's a very similar statistics for customer commercial off-the-shelf solutions. So let's deep a little bit deeper into the subject. So where are we with the whole no-code, low-code trend? Foundry says 65% of organizations already has at least one low-code platform. And Forrester says that this year, 75% of very large companies will have at least 4 low-code platforms for application development. And on top of that, Microsoft says 450 million applications will be delivered by 2025. And it all sounds great, right? The future is bright. It's so easy. It's so nice. It makes sense, right? You can build something fast. It's not expensive. You just pay one vendor for the software. But then comes the reality check. Okay. There is a research from 2 years ago made based on the DACH region, mind you. So they asked Germans, Austrians, and Swiss, how are they doing with low-code? And the results are like this. The question was, how many applications have you built in the past 5 years? And guess what? Almost 80% delivers, on average, 1 application per year. 1. And we need 291. So we are still missing 290 per year. That's huge under-delivery. And the question is how to be like those guys, how to be able to deliver more than 10, more than 15, how to deliver 25 a year. And it's about mindset and strategy. So the technology is not an answer to everything. We cannot fix everything with technology. Technology is just a means to an end, right? You have to think through your strategy, think through how you use your tools in order to be efficient, in order to be effective. And if you look at the, let's say, classic approach to application delivery, especially with custom coding, we create everything from scratch, right? We want it to be pretty. We want it to cover all of the scenarios. We want it to be just as we imagine it to be. And you can look at the car, you can imagine many different analogies, and this car looks great, right? At least to my taste. It's very powerful, it sounds awesome, but it's just one car. And we are needing 25, 50, 100, 200 cars. So, to start and to think about the development, you already have to have certain vision in your mind of, hey, we're not doing just one, we're going to do many, 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 many more. And again, it's about the scale, right? So you need to use certain synergies, you need to use certain leverages that the technology provides you and combine it with your strategy. Because otherwise, the boutique approach, as I call it, so creating everything from scratch, handcrafting every single detail, is again no longer an option. What you need to have is a factory at your disposal. You need to think like factory whenever you want to meet your demand for applications. So the question is how to make that work, right? It sounds great, makes sense, but give me something concrete, give me the meat, right? So I'll give you 5 things that you can consider, and I definitely, encourage you to think this through and be critical. But this is based on our experiences and our clients' experiences on the subject, based on 18 years of being on the market. First of all, consistency. And to give you an example, why is it important? You may ask multiple people, hey, build me a form with a save button, right? And these are the results. These are all forms with a save button. But on one hand, there will be save button here, save button on the top, and so on and so forth. And again, if you do that for one application, that's okay. But if you introduce 50 applications that will be inconsistent, then your users will go crazy, I guarantee. We're already overloaded with software, right? We use smartphones, we use PCs, tablets, and so on. And we don't want to learn any more applications. They should be instantly familiar to you. And users may not love consistency, because some consistency is often not the prettiest choice that you can make, but they definitely hate inconsistency. And if you think about it, that has some certain effects on your long-term strategy, because you'll have to train people. It's not easy to pick up someone else's work. It's a huge administration effort to make sure everything goes smoothly, and maintenance is also a nightmare. And as you remember, the title of this presentation is how to avoid maintenance headaches. So this is your first option. And basically, consistency brings certain level of reliability and stability in the organization. So if you teach somebody one application and then every other one looks similar, looks familiar, then it's much, much easier. And it's the whole process of introducing new applications, it's much, much smoother. And when we talk about consistency, and I have some people on the meeting for interactive exchanges, I often hear, but I want my perfect interface. I want just exactly as I imagined, right? I want my, I don't know, picture in the middle of the screen, right? And to that, we say, look, it's okay to customize, it's okay to be a perfectionist in a sense, but save it for customer-facing applications, right? If you're a bank and you have a client and you introduce mobile application, yes, make it as perfect as possible, right? But if you're using low-code or any platform or you take any approach to application delivery for internal processes, for the back office, focusing on delivering one standard for the UI, one standard for certain behavior of your applications, because otherwise users go nuts. Second thing, change and continuous improvement. There is a 19th century saying, measure twice, cut once. It's from carpentry, right? You don't want to have scraps and stuff like that. And it makes a lot of sense, but not in IT, not in application delivery. Because what happens when you do that is the following. We plan and plan and plan and plan and make sure our vision is absolutely perfect. We have every single exceptions covered and every single detail in place, and then we build. But what is the result? The users, the organizations are waiting for anything to happen for months and sometimes years, and they get discouraged, they get disconnected from that project after a while. So instead of doing so, go for shorter sprints, so to say. So plan and build, and be ready to change. Because the first results will already appear much earlier, right? And there's a Pareto rule, right? That 20% of effort will provide you with 80% of results. So we want that at the very beginning, not at the very end. The rest you can cover in the meantime, and the technology should be able to support it, and you should be prepared for that specific way of delivering applications. And that basically means that you need to release pilot implementations and MVPs, so minimum viable products, in order to do that, collect the feedback, and then release again. And you'll deliver first, you'll deliver fast, but also you'll fail fast. And again, it may sound counterintuitive. What are you talking about? We don't want to fail. Failure is very important. Because if you fail after 1 month of development, that's probably okay, right? If you fail after 18 months of development, well, heads will roll, right? And in effect, if you follow this path, you will deliver more, not only in terms of applications, but also in terms of the value. Because if you keep improving those applications, you will maximize the value that we're delivering to the users and to the organization. So if it sounds like agile, it is. But I have a feeling these days agile is super overused term, right? And then people already got tired of hearing about agile. So I'm talking about the very practical approach. I'm not talking about, hey, do stand-up meetings every single day to manage your projects. You may do that, but it's not what I'm talking about. I'm just going for, hey, focus on delivering maximum value as soon as possible in terms of application delivery. The third thing is that development of applications is just about 15% of the whole application lifecycle. And again, if you explain it, it's logical, it makes sense. But at the same time, most vendors on the market and also most users, most companies that are looking for a solution focus just on that part. And the thing is, if you just shorten 15% of the whole application lifecycle, you're not gaining a lot, and there's still plenty to do. So let me explain how does it work. I'll use the football analogy, okay? Who likes football? Raise your hand. More than a half, good, because otherwise my analogy would be screwed. So look, on the field, we have certain roles, right? We have strikers, we have midfield, defense, and the goalkeeper, right? I'm from Poland. We have Lewandowski, great striker, right? He scored a record amount of goals in Germany, in German league. And somehow, our national football team haven't achieved anything in years, right? Because the other guys are not up to par, right? So ultimately, at some point, sooner or later, they fail, right? They are not achieving the expectations and the results that we would like to have, which is, World Cup championship, of course. Similar story with applications. If you focus just on development, so to quickly deliver, you're missing out on other stuff, right? And your application will not be successful if you're not covering those parts as well. They have to all work together in order to give you the result you want, and it has to be a long-term result. So if you look at it from the perspective of things that we don't touch often enough, you have certain enterprise features like security, deployment, compliance, change management, documentation, providing updates, training, maintenance, upkeep, and so on and so forth. So we cannot just say, hey, let's just be happy, deliver applications and forget about it, right? Because you can do that for application that you use on your own, that is not storing any sensitive data and so on. But for organizational productivity, for wider usage, you need to have those in place sooner or later. So it's basically a little bit like an iceberg sticking up. We're seeing this, and we're focusing on this when we evaluate vendors, when we evaluate our approaches and so on, but there's still way more many things below that. And ultimately, without them, you might be facing an audit. You might be facing a security breach, or your users will tell you, hey, that's some inconsistent interface. I don't want to use that. I don't want to learn anymore. And so on and so forth. And that will contribute to the failure rate of the applications. And actually, there's a statistics from McKinsey that only 1 out of 200 IT projects meet all 3 criteria of success, which is being on time, in budget, and meeting the business benefits that were assumed. So please do not contribute to that statistic. And what to do about those remaining 85%? Basically, you have 2 choices. You can try to find a solution that covers them out of the box, or in the least amount of effort that you need to put into it, or you can create your own set of standards, your own set of reusable components, not to reinvent the wheel every single time you create an application, okay? Because we want that factory approach. Because otherwise, if you don't think in terms of reusability and then covering those places, you're going back to the boutique, right? You're going back to reinventing the wheel every single time. Number 4 is about cooperation of business and IT. How many of you, and this is not a trick question, how many of you know the term citizen development? Raise your hand. Okay, so I'll just quickly explain. Citizen development is a trend that picked up recently, and it's about involving business people into the application development, right? Because we are lacking 600,000 developers. IT departments are always short-staffed because there's always too much work. So how about we put some of those work to the business people, right? Sounds good? Sounds reasonable? Maybe, especially if you have Legos, right? Sounds easy enough. But the problem with citizen development is there are three scenarios that can happen, usually. First, citizens don't know what to do. Business people don't know what to do. They don't know how to use the tools. It all fails, right? Before we even start. That's the quickest one. The second one, they do that, and there is no governance. There is no certain level of responsibility. So once those applications pick up, and for example, if I created something for you, sir, and I leave the company, who takes over my application, right? Who is responsible for it? Nobody. And then it dies, right? And the third option that can happen is citizens become very responsible, knowledgeable, they care about security and so on, and as an effect, they're no longer citizens. They become developers. And again, we are achieving the success in terms of application delivery, but we are lacking business people now. So from that perspective, we need to be cautious and also considerate in terms of how to leverage the participation of business people into application delivery. Because let's be honest, most of the business people, they will not care about running an application factory. They will not care about consistency, continuous improvement, security, all of those enterprise features, because they were not trained like developers. They are not thinking like developers. They want to solve their own business problems, and that's natural. So what we propose is to involve citizens, business people, in what they know best, right? And what do they know? They know what kind of problems they have, right? They know what kind of, for example, business processes are needed in the company. So we propose to put them in the control of what, right? What is the business process? What are the goals we need to achieve? What are the automations that we need to introduce because we do things manually still? And then on the other side, we have IT people. And how many of you are from IT departments strictly? Most of you. So I'll tell you what, most business people think that you don't understand them, okay? They have that feeling. Maybe not you specifically, but you in the general population of IT people, right? And that's the thing, but at the same time, you know the how, right? You know how to deliver, you know the importance of enterprise features, right? Like security, documentation, and so on. So that's why you should be responsible for that part, right? Keeping the factory running and making sure we have one cohesive vision and governance of all of the applications that you're delivering. So essentially speaking, it's worth to build a certain bridge between business people and IT. One flag that I will introduce here about WEBCON, and is the only one, is that we basically built an interface for business people and IT so they could work together, right? So business people voice their requirements in a graphical, visual way, and then IT takes over and is responsible for making that happen. And the last thing that I want to share with you today is about the people, right? Because you may have the most sophisticated application in the world. You may have the most consistent landscape of applications that we can imagine. They can have all security features out there, but if they're not used, they are for nothing, right? It's a failure. It's a failure from a completely different perspective. So you should be always ready to answer the question of a business person, of your end user, what's in it for me? Because certain things, if we look from the organizational perspective, yes, we want to automate, we want to be more productive, we want to be more efficient, that's fine. But if I'm an accountant, I ask you, okay, but what do I have from this? Right? Why should I be engaged in your application? And we cannot omit the personal benefits, right? If I can tell you, look, you can save your time because you're doing stuff on paper, and now the system can do it for you and you can focus on your actual work, yes, that is a certain level of personal benefits. There are certain areas that are not at all considered by the organization to be important, but they are extremely important for the people, right? And I'll give an example. In WEBCON, we have an office building with parking slots, right? And there are few people that have been long enough in the company that have their spots reserved, right? I'm one of them, I admit. So I have my parking spot number with my registration plate, and if somebody else wants to take it, we say no. And then there are some general spaces available, like for everyone, but from the web, from the company, right? And as you can imagine, if we're 150 people, and almost every single one has a car, we don't really want to have 150 parking spaces because we simply don't have enough space for it, right? So this caused significant frictions in the company because people were mad, like, hey, who took my place? I booked that a week ago, right? And then somebody else has arrived and that appeared to be a guest of the company. And now it's a whole fuss, and there were emails flying throughout every single employee of the company, right? And it turned out that if we create an application to manage parking spaces in a way that, for example, when I'm on a business trip like today, my spot becomes automatically available for somebody else, right? If I go on a vacation, it becomes available immediately. If I'm at the home office, it becomes available for somebody else to book. And suddenly, the problem has been solved, right? It's a small thing for the organization. It's almost meaningless if you look from the very high board level. But for the, let's say, regular people, it's super, super important. And they were actually losing a lot of time and nerves on trying to find a parking slot. So that is super, super, super important to keep in mind whenever you implement anything. On top of that, you need to know your audience, right? If you have a tech-savvy people in your company, they have different requirements and different expectations than people that are a little bit lagging behind with technology. So, if you think about training materials, videos, webinars, PDFs, and so on, you need to be able to address your audience. And also you need to cover the basics. We talked about consistency and so on, but there's many small things that you can do to make sure applications are as easy to use as possible, like provide tooltips, provide certain information on how to do stuff, what is expected of user to do, right? Because first of all, you want to onboard them quickly, but also you don't want to have them asking you questions constantly. Hey, what do I do here? What happens if I click this button? And so on and so forth. And the last thing is about feedback and providing support, right? Those applications, as we talked about continuous improvement, they need to respond to actual needs. They need to provide a value. So the feedback from users is important, But even more important thing is to actually implement some of those ideas that they give you. Not all of them, because it's impossible, but I'm sure if you go for continuous improvement, there'll be space for many of them. So to summarize, first of all, perfect is the enemy of good. It's better to have good, consistent UI for everything than just one perfect one. You have to focus on delivering results fast and follow the minimum viable approach. Whether you like it or not, there's no escaping from adult things of applications like governance and maintenance, user adoption, and so on. Reuse as much as you can, because otherwise it's a boutique. Let business control the what, let IT control the how, and make sure they are connected together. And at the end, ensure employee involvement and participation, because at the end of the day, to measure a success of factory approach and implementations, you will see that business people will approach you and ask you for more. And that's from my perspective, the biggest factor of and measurement of success. So with that said, thank you very much. If you'd like to know more about low-code and so on, we have a special webinar. You can sign up using the barcode. And in the meantime, thank you very much. Do we have any questions? Yes, please. Yes. Sorry, because I cannot hear you. Yes. So I'll repeat for everyone, because they probably didn't hear it. The question was at number 3. What do we mean about the platform taking care of maintenance and other things? And the governance, yes. So for instance, when we talked about citizen development, right? If you choose a platform that will allow you to